The apartment was cold that night, not from the temperature, but from the silence that filled every corner. Outside, the wind rattled the balcony doors, but inside, everything felt frozen in time. Emma sat curled on the armchair by the window, a half-read book resting on her lap. She hadn't turned a page in 20 minutes. Her mind was elsewhere, though her face showed nothing. Daniel stood near the kitchen island, arms crossed, jaw tight. He'd been pacing for the last 10 minutes, building up to something. His dress shirt was wrinkled, his tie loosened like he'd just gotten back from somewhere he shouldn't have been. He kept glancing at her, waiting for the right moment, or maybe just working up the nerve. Finally, he stopped. His shoes scuffed against the wooden floor as he turned to face her fully. Emma. She didn't look up right away, just slowly closed the book and sat on the side table before meeting his eyes. Her expression was soft, almost tired, like she'd already heard what he was about to say. Yeah. Daniel exhaled sharply, dragging a hand down his face. He wasn't nervous. He was annoyed. Annoyed that this conversation had to happen. Annoyed that she was sitting there so calm when he was about to blow up her world. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice low but firm. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Emma didn't flinch. She just tilted her head slightly, waiting. He took a breath, then delivered it like a punch meant to knock her flat. I've been sleeping with your sister. The words dropped into the room like stones into still water. Heavy, final, meant to shatter everything. Emma didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She just stared at him, her face unreadable, her hands resting gently on the arms of the chair. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Daniel's brow furrowed. This wasn't the reaction he expected. He thought she'd scream, throw something, demand answers. He thought she'd crumble, but she just sat there, watching him like he was a stranger who'd walked into the wrong apartment. Did you hear me? He asked, his voice sharper now, almost defensive. I heard you, Emma said quietly. And she shrugged just barely. And what? Daniel's jaw clenched. He stepped closer, his frustration rising. You're really not going to say anything? Not going to ask me why? How long? Nothing. Emma looked down at her hands for a moment, then back up at him. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Would it change anything? That's not the point, he snapped. I just told you I've been sleeping with your sister, Emma. Your own blood. And you're sitting there like I told you I was late for work. She didn't respond right away. Just let his words hang in the air while she studied him. There was something in her eyes now, something he couldn't quite place. Not anger, not sadness, something quieter, something that made him feel like he was the one being judged. Why are you telling me this, Daniel? She finally asked. He scoffed. What kind of question is that? A real one. Her tone didn't change. You didn't have to tell me. You could have kept sneaking around. So why now? Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. He hadn't expected her to flip it on him like that. He'd expected tears, rage, begging. He'd expected her to fall apart so he could walk out the door without guilt. But this calm, this quiet strength, it unnerved him. Because I'm done pretending, he said, his voice harder now. I'm done with this. With us. Emma nodded slowly, like she'd already known. Okay. Daniel repeated, his voice rising. That's all you have to say? She stood up then, smoothing down her sweater, her movements deliberate and calm. She walked past him toward the hallway, pausing only to glance back over her shoulder. If you're waiting for me to beg you to stay, she said softly, you're going to be disappointed. And with that, she disappeared into the bedroom, leaving Daniel standing alone in the cold, empty living room, realizing for the first time that he wasn't the one in control. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He'd expected Emma to storm into the bedroom, to demand answers, to cry into her pillow. He'd prepared himself for the drama, the confrontation, maybe even the screaming match that would justify his decision to leave. But none of it came. She'd simply gone to bed, closed her eyes, and fallen asleep as if nothing had happened. It unnerved him more than any argument ever could. The next morning, he found her in the kitchen, making coffee. She wore her usual weekend clothes, a soft gray sweater and leggings, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. The morning light filtered through the window, casting a calm glow over the room. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. "Morning," she said without looking at him, pouring coffee into her favorite mug. Daniel stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her. "That's it? Just morning. What else would you like me to say?" Emma asked, her tone even almost polite. "I don't know, Emma. Maybe something about what I told you last night." His voice rose slightly, frustration bleeding through. "Or are we just going to pretend it didn't happen?" She finally looked at him, her expression blank. "I'm not pretending anything. You said what you said. I heard you. And I'm making coffee." She turned back to the counter, adding cream to her mug with steady hands. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. This wasn't right. This wasn't how people reacted to betrayal. He stepped further into the kitchen, his voice sharper now. "You're unbelievable, you know that? I tell you I've been sleeping with your sister, and you act like I told you the weather forecast." Emma took a slow sip of her coffee, then set the mug down gently. "What do you want me to do, Daniel?" "I want you to react," he shouted, slamming his hand on the counter. "Yell at me. Cry. Ask me why. Something. Anything." She didn't flinch at his outburst, just looked at him with those calm, unreadable eyes. "Would that make you feel better?" The question caught him off guard. "What? If I cried or screamed, would that make you feel better about what you did?" Her voice was soft, but there was something underneath it, something he couldn't quite reach. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer. He'd wanted her to break so he could justify his actions, so he could tell himself she was the dramatic one, the difficult one. But she wasn't giving him that. "This is insane," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "You're acting like a robot." "I'm acting like someone who heard what you said and is processing it," Emma replied, picking up her mug again. "Is that a crime?" "It's not normal. Maybe I'm just not interested in giving you the reaction you want." That hit harder than he expected. Daniel stared at her, searching her face for cracks, for any sign of the pain he knew should be there. But there was nothing, just that maddening calm. "Are you even upset?" he demanded. "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters." His voice cracked with frustration. "I just told you I betrayed you with your own sister, and you're standing here like it's nothing." Emma set her mug down and turned to face him fully. For a moment, he thought he saw something flicker in her eyes, something dark and knowing. But it was gone before he could be sure. "I'm not going to give you the fight you're looking for, Daniel," she said quietly. "If you want to leave, leave. If you want to stay and talk, we can talk. But I'm not going to scream at you just so you can feel like the victim here." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. There was something in her tone, in the way she looked at him, that made him feel like he'd miscalculated. Like he'd walked into a trap he didn't even know was there. He wanted to say something, to regain control, but the words wouldn't come. So he just stood there, watching her sip her coffee in silence, realizing for the first time that her composure wasn't weakness. It was power. 3 months earlier, Emma had been folding laundry in their bedroom when Daniel's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He was in the shower, and the screen lit up with a message preview. It was from her sister, Maya. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." Emma's hands had stilled on the towel she was holding. She stared at the message for a long moment, her heart thudding steadily in her chest. Not with shock, not with devastation, with confirmation. She'd suspected something for weeks. The late nights at work that didn't match his calendar. The sudden interest in going to the gym. The way he'd pull his phone away when she walked into a room. And Maya's behavior, avoiding family dinners, being evasive when Emma called, the guilt practically radiating off her during their last conversation. Emma had hoped she was wrong, but deep down, she'd known. She set the towel down carefully and picked up Daniel's phone. His passcode was easy, their anniversary date he'd never bothered to change. She scrolled through the messages, each one a knife she felt but didn't let cut. Photos, plans, promises, months of them. The shower turned off. Emma calmly put the phone back exactly where it had been, returned to folding laundry, and said nothing when Daniel came out wrapped in a towel, smiling at her like everything was normal. That night, while he slept, Emma made a decision. She wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. She was going to be smart about this. The next morning, she called Marcus, a private investigator a colleague had once recommended. She met him at a coffee shop across town where no one knew her. Marcus was professional, discreet, and efficient. She gave him everything she had, every suspicion, every detail, and he promised results within 2 weeks. Most people wait too long to call me, Marcus had said. You're doing the right thing by getting ahead of it. Emma had smiled politely and ordered another coffee. While Marcus worked, Emma started digging on her own. She went through their shared bank statements, something she rarely checked because Daniel always handled the finances. He was the accountant, after all. She trusted him. That trust had been a mistake. The irregularities were subtle at first. Small transfers to an account she didn't recognize. Cash withdrawals that seemed random. But when she dug deeper, using the login credentials she found saved on his laptop, the picture became clearer. Daniel had opened a separate account 2 years ago. He'd been funneling money into it slowly, steadily, 500 here, 1,000 there. The balance was now sitting at just over $47,000. Money from their joint savings, from bonuses he'd told her went to taxes, from the emergency fund they'd built together. Emma took screenshots of everything. Every transaction. Every statement. Every lie. Marcus delivered his report right on schedule. Photos of Daniel and Maya at hotels, restaurants, even her apartment. Timestamps. Dates. A complete timeline of the affair going back 7 months. Emma paid him in cash and filed everything in a folder she kept locked in her car. Then she called Linda Chun, the best divorce attorney in the city. Linda had a reputation for being ruthless and thorough. Emma liked her immediately. I want to be clear, Emma had said during their first meeting, sliding the folder across the desk. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to protect myself. Linda had opened the folder, flipped through the contents, and smiled. You've done good work. Most clients come to me with nothing but suspicions. You've handed me a case on a silver platter. How long will this take? Emma asked. With evidence like this, we can move quickly, but I'd recommend waiting for the right moment. Let him think he's in control. People make mistakes when they think they're winning. Emma had nodded. I can wait. And she had. For 3 months, she played the role of the unsuspecting wife. She smiled at Daniel. She made dinner. She asked about his day. She attended family gatherings and made small talk with Maya, watching her sister squirm with guilt. All the while, the folder sat in her car, waiting. Now, standing in the kitchen while Daniel demanded a reaction, Emma thought about that folder. About every receipt, every photo, every carefully documented lie. She'd known all along. And soon, he would know that she knew. Daniel started coming home later. Sometimes not at all. The excuses became lazier, almost insulting in their transparency. Working on a big client portfolio. Drinks with the team ran long. Crashing at Jake's place, too tired to drive. He didn't even try to make them believable anymore. Emma would simply nod, say okay, and return to whatever she was doing. Reading, watching television, existing in the same space as him without really being there at all. Her withdrawal was complete. She stopped asking questions, stopped cooking his favorite meals, stopped reaching for his hand on the couch or kissing him goodbye in the mornings. She became a ghost in her own home, present but not really there, and Daniel noticed. But he misread it entirely. He thought he'd broken her. He thought her silence meant surrender, that her distance was depression, that she'd given up fighting because she knew she'd already lost. It fed something dark in him, something that had always been there, but had grown bolder with each passing day of her non-reaction. He started getting comfortable. Too comfortable. One Friday evening, he came home at midnight, smelling of perfume that wasn't his. Emma was reading in bed, glasses perched on her nose, her expression neutral as he stumbled through the bedroom door. You're still awake, he said, loosening his tie with a slight smirk. Couldn't sleep, Emma replied, not looking up from her book. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, watching her. You know, most women would have kicked me out by now. Emma turned a page. Is that what you want? I'm just saying, you're handling this better than I expected. He pulled off his shoes, dropping them carelessly on the floor. I thought you'd be more dramatic about it. Sorry to disappoint, she said quietly. He laughed, actually laughed. You're not disappointing me, Emma. You're making this easier. He stood up, stretching. I mean, I get to do what I want, and you just accept it. It's almost perfect. Emma's jaw tightened slightly, but she said nothing. Just kept her eyes on the page, even though she hadn't absorbed a single word in the last 5 minutes. Maya's better in bed, by the way, Daniel added, walking toward the bathroom. He paused at the door, glancing back. Just thought you should know. The cruelty was intentional. He wanted a reaction, wanted to see if there was still any fight left in her. But Emma just closed her book slowly, set it on the nightstand, and turned off her lamp. "Good night, Daniel," she said into the darkness. He stood there for a moment, confused by her continued composure, then shrugged and went into the bathroom. As the shower turned on, Emma stared at the ceiling, her hands folded calmly over her stomach. Behind her calm exterior, the wheels were turning. The next week, while Daniel was out with Maya, Emma sat in her car in a parking garage downtown. Linda Chun slid into the passenger seat, carrying a leather briefcase. "Everything's ready," Linda said, pulling out documents. "Divorce papers, asset division proposal, and the evidence file. I've also prepared an emergency motion to freeze the joint accounts the moment you file." Emma nodded, scanning the papers under the car's interior light. "The separate account he's been hiding?" Linda continued. "We can claim half of that too, since it was funded with marital assets. And with the affair evidence, we have grounds to argue for a favorable settlement." "What about the timeline?" Emma asked. "We can file Monday morning. He'll be served by Tuesday afternoon. Given the evidence, his lawyer will likely advise him to settle rather than drag this through court." Emma signed the papers with steady hands, her signature crisp and decisive on each line. "There's one more thing," Linda said, pulling out another document. "I've drafted a letter to his firm's ethics board. As a licensed accountant, the financial irregularities combined with his affair creates a professional liability issue. They'll have to investigate." Emma looked at Linda. "Will that affect his career?" "Possibly. At minimum, he'll face scrutiny. At worst, suspension or termination." Emma thought about all the nights he came home late. All the lies, all the cruelty, the way he'd looked at her tonight with such smug satisfaction. "Include it," she said. Linda smiled and tucked everything back in her briefcase. "I'll see you Monday morning, 9 sharp." As Linda left, Emma sat in her car for a long moment, watching the rain streak down the windshield. Then she started the engine and drove home, where Daniel was probably already asleep, dreaming of his freedom. He had no idea how quickly that freedom was about to end. Daniel walked into the conference room on the 14th floor with his usual swagger. His tailored suit was crisp, his leather briefcase swung casually at his side, and he wore the confident smile of a man who believed he was untouchable. The email had been vague. "Mandatory financial review meeting, 10 a.m. sharp, conference room B." He'd assumed it was routine, another quarterly audit to rubber stamp his department's numbers. He'd handled dozens of these before. This would be no different. But when he pushed open the heavy glass door, his smile faltered. The room was full, too full for a routine meeting. At the head of the long mahogany table sat Gerald Morrison, the company's chief financial officer, his expression grave. Beside him were 2 people Daniel didn't recognize, a silver-haired woman in a navy suit and a younger man with glasses, both with the unmistakable air of external auditors. His department head, Susan, sat near the window, her face carefully neutral. And then he saw her, Emma. She sat halfway down the table, flanked by 2 attorneys in sharp business attire. Her posture was perfect, her hands folded calmly on the table in front of her. She wore a burgundy blazer he'd never seen before, her hair pulled back professionally, her expression completely unreadable. Daniel's briefcase nearly slipped from his hand. "Daniel, please sit down," Gerald said, gesturing to the empty chair directly across from Emma. "What's going on?" Daniel asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why is my wife here?" "Sit down, and we'll explain everything," the silver-haired woman said. Her voice was cold, clinical. Daniel sat slowly, his eyes darting between Emma and the others. She didn't look at him, just kept her gaze fixed somewhere in the middle distance, her face a mask of calm. Gerald cleared his throat. "Daniel, this is Margaret Winters from Whitmore Financial Forensics and her associate, David Chun. They've been conducting an independent audit of your accounts over the past 3 weeks." "An audit?" Daniel's voice cracked slightly. "Why wasn't I informed?" "Because you're the subject of the investigation, Margaret said, opening a folder in front of her. We've uncovered significant irregularities in your handling of company funds over the past 2 years. She slid a document across the table. Daniel's eyes scanned the page, his stomach dropping with each line. Bank transfers, dates, amounts. His secret account laid bare in black and white. That's a personal account, he stammered. I don't see what that has to do with the company. This personal account, David interjected, tapping another document, received multiple transfers from the corporate discretionary fund you manage. $83,000 over 24 months, to be exact. The room went silent. Daniel's face drained of color. You authorized these transfers yourself? Margaret continued, disguising them as vendor payments and consultant fees. But we track them. Every single one leads back to your personal account. I can explain, Daniel said quickly, his hands gripping the edge of the table. Those were legitimate business expenses that I covered personally and reimbursed myself for. I have receipts. We'd love to see those receipts, Margaret said, her tone sharp. Because according to our investigation, a significant portion of that money was spent on hotel rooms, restaurant reservations, and gifts, many of which correspond with dates and locations that match these. David placed another stack of papers on the table. Photos, timestamps, credit card receipts. Daniel and Maya at the Riverside Hotel. Dinner at Marcello's. A weekend trip to wine country. Daniel's throat went dry. How did you? For the first time, Emma spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. I gave them everything. Daniel's head snapped toward her. She finally met his eyes, and what he saw there made his blood run cold. Not anger, not sadness, just cold, calculated resolve. You used company money to fund your affair with my sister, Emma said evenly. You stole from your employer to pay for hotel rooms and gifts for her. I documented everything and brought it to the board 3 weeks ago. Emma, please, Daniel whispered, his arrogance completely evaporated. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, she interrupted. You thought I was weak. You thought I'd just accept it and fall apart. You were wrong. Gerald leaned forward. Daniel, effective immediately, you're suspended pending a full investigation. We're also obligated to report this to the state licensing board. You'll likely face criminal charges for embezzlement. Daniel looked around the room desperately. Susan wouldn't meet his eyes. The auditors watched him with professional detachment. Emma's attorneys sat silent, their presence a threat he finally understood. This is insane, he breathed. This will ruin me. Emma stood, gathering her coat. She paused at the door, looking back at him one last time. You ruined yourself, she said simply. I just made sure everyone knew about it. And then she walked out, leaving Daniel sitting in the wreckage of everything he'd built, finally understanding that her silence had never been weakness. It had been strategy. Daniel sat in his car outside their apartment building for 20 minutes before finding the courage to go inside. He'd been escorted out of the office by security, his badge deactivated, his access revoked. The humiliation burned hotter than any anger he could muster. He needed Emma. Despite everything, despite what he'd done, she was the only person who could help him now. She'd always been reasonable, always been forgiving. Maybe if he apologized, really apologized, she'd talk to the company, convince them it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she'd stand by him through this. The apartment was quiet when he entered. Emma sat at the dining table, a manila folder in front of her, a cup of tea cooling beside it. She looked up when he walked in, her expression unchanged from the conference room. Emma, we need to talk, Daniel said, his voice desperate. That meeting, what you did, you don't understand what you've. Sit down, Daniel, she said calmly, gesturing to the chair across from her. He sat, hope flickering in his chest. She was willing to talk. That meant there was still a chance. Emma opened the manila folder and slid a stack of papers across the table. These are for you. Daniel looked down. The words at the top of the first page made his heart stop. Petition for dissolution of marriage. What? His hands trembled as he picked up the papers. Emma, what is this? Divorce papers, she said simply. Already filed with the court. You'll be officially served tomorrow, but I wanted you to see them first. You file for divorce? His voice rose in disbelief. When? Monday morning. Right after our last conversation, Daniel's mind reeled. Monday was 4 days ago. She'd planned this, executed it, all while he'd been walking around thinking he was in control. Emma, please, you can't do this. Not now. I need you. You should have thought about that before you slept with my sister and embezzled from your company, she replied, taking a sip of her tea. I didn't embezzle. It was a mistake, poor record keeping. I can fix it. The auditors disagree. So does the state licensing board, who will receive their formal report tomorrow. Daniel felt panic rising in his chest. Emma, listen to me. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we can work through this. We've been together for 8 years. That has to mean something. It did mean something, Emma said quietly, until you decided it didn't. He reached across the table for her hand, but she pulled away. Please, I'm begging you. Don't do this. I'll end things with Maya. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't leave me now. It's already done, Daniel. The papers are filed. Our joint accounts are frozen as of this morning, per my attorney's recommendation and court order. His eyes widened. Frozen? Emma, I need access to that money. I need to hire a lawyer. I need to. You should have considered that before you hid $47,000 in a secret account, she interrupted. An account funded with our marital assets, by the way, which my attorney will be claiming half of in the settlement. Daniel felt the walls closing in. Where's Maya? I need to talk to her. She can help explain. Maya's gone. Gone where? Emma's expression didn't change. She left town yesterday. Apparently, she's not interested in being subpoenaed or questioned about her knowledge of your financial activities. She blocked your number, by the way. I saw her do it. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. Maya had abandoned him. Just like that. You planned all of this, Daniel whispered, looking at Emma with new eyes. Every moment of silence, every time you didn't react, you were planning this. Yes. How long? 3 months. He felt sick. 3 months of her knowing, watching, gathering evidence while he paraded around thinking he'd won. You manipulated me. No, Emma said firmly. I protected myself from a man who thought he could destroy me without consequences. There's a difference. Daniel's desperation turned to anger. You vindictive. Careful, one of her attorneys said from the doorway. Daniel hadn't even noticed the man enter. Anything you say can and will be used in the proceedings. Emma stood, gathering her folder. You have 3 days to collect your personal belongings. After that, the locks will be changed. Your attorney can contact mine regarding the settlement negotiations, but given the evidence of adultery and financial misconduct, I'd suggest you accept whatever's offered. Emma, please. Daniel's voice cracked, tears forming in his eyes. Don't do this. I love you. She paused at the hallway, looking back at him one final time. Her eyes were completely dry, her voice steady. You loved yourself more, she said. That was always the problem. She walked into the bedroom and closed the door, leaving Daniel sitting at the table with divorce papers in his shaking hands, finally understanding that the silent, calm woman he'd underestimated had just destroyed him completely. And she'd done it without raising her voice once. Daniel couldn't let her walk away. Not like this. Not with everything crumbling around him. He followed Emma to her car the next morning as she carried a small suitcase down to the parking garage. She'd spent the night in the guest room with the door locked, and he'd paced the hallway until dawn, trying to figure out what to say, how to fix this. Emma, wait, he called out, jogging to catch up with her. She didn't stop, just kept walking with measured steps, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. Emma, please, just listen to me for 1 minute, he pleaded, grabbing her arm. She stopped and turned to face him, her expression cold. Let go of me, Daniel. He released her immediately, holding his hands up. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For everything. For Maya. For the money. For taking you for granted. I was an idiot, and I know that now. Yes, you were, Emma said simply, adjusting her grip on her suitcase. Can we just talk about this? Really talk. His voice cracked with desperation. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me one chance to make this right. Emma set her suitcase down and faced him fully. For a moment, Daniel thought he saw a flicker of something in her eyes, maybe pity, maybe remembrance of what they used to be. But when she spoke, her voice was firm. There's nothing to talk about, Daniel. You made your choices, and now you're living with the consequences. I made a mistake, he shouted, his composure shattering. People make mistakes. You're really going to throw away 8 years over one mistake. One mistake. Emma's eyebrow raised slightly. You had an affair with my sister for 7 months. You embezzled $83,000 from your company. You lied to me every single day. Those aren't mistakes, Daniel. Those are choices. I'll change. I swear to you, I'll change. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't give up on us. Emma shook her head slowly. You don't understand. I'm not giving up on us. There is no us anymore. There hasn't been for a long time. You just didn't notice because you were too busy thinking you'd already won. I never wanted to hurt you, Daniel whispered, tears streaming down his face now. But you did hurt me, Emma said quietly. And the difference between us is that when you hurt me, I didn't fall apart. I got strategic. She picked up her suitcase again and opened her car trunk, placing it inside with care. Daniel watched her, feeling more helpless than he'd ever felt in his life. How did you do it? How did you stay so calm through all of this? Emma closed the trunk and turned to face him one last time. You thought my silence meant I was broken. That's where you made your biggest mistake. Then what did it mean? It meant I was thinking, planning, preparing. She opened her car door. You wanted me to scream and cry so you could feel powerful, so you could play the victim and blame me for overreacting. I didn't give you that satisfaction. So what, this is revenge? Daniel asked bitterly. No, Emma said, sliding into the driver's seat. This is justice. There's a difference. She started the engine, and Daniel stepped back, watching his life drive away. Emma, he called out desperately. What am I supposed to do now? She rolled down her window slightly, her face framed in the morning light. You figure it out. The same way I did when you decided my sister was worth more than our marriage. I don't know how to do this alone, he admitted, his voice breaking. Emma's expression softened just slightly, but her resolve didn't waver. Neither did I, but I learned, and so will you. Will I ever see you again? In court, she said simply. Through our attorneys. Daniel felt his knees weaken. I really did love you, Emma. I know you don't believe me, but I did. Emma was quiet for a long moment, her hands resting on the steering wheel. Maybe you did, in your own way. But your love was selfish, Daniel. It only worked when it was convenient for you. Real love shows up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She began to roll up the window. Emma, wait. Goodbye, Daniel. The window closed completely. Emma put the car in reverse, and without looking back, she drove out of the garage and into the bright morning sun. Daniel stood there in the empty parking space, surrounded by oil stains and concrete pillars, the echoes of her engine fading into silence. His phone buzzed in his pocket. His lawyer, his bank, his mother, everyone wanting answers he didn't have. He'd lost his job, his marriage, his reputation, all because he'd mistaken her silence for surrender. Emma had been right about everything. She didn't break. She prepared. And now, while he was left standing in the ruins of his own making, she was driving toward a future she'd carefully planned, one where he no longer existed. If this story resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about strength, strategy, and the power of silence. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. And sometimes the best revenge isn't breaking down. It's building yourself back up and walking away with your head held high.